We're going to get started. The first rule of Fight Club is, sorry, wrong presentation. Thank you for joining us today. We're extremely proud about what we've done in Fort Stockton. This is going to be the 4th year that we're entering this pay system. And I think, as Mr. Madrid, my deputy superintendent, mentioned, we're a bit ahead of the game. I know I probably upset the Commissioner of Education when I told him that TIA was a noble effort, but that it was flawed, and that maybe he should take a look at what we're doing. So thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Gabriel Zamora. I've been a superintendent. For over a decade. 2016, I started the 4-day movement in the state. A lot of innovations, different things. This is just one of the most important, because I really believe that about 50 to 60% of the problems in education could be solved by implementing versions of this. So,
my name is Gilroy Madrid. I want to thank you guys for being here with us today. I know that you're choosing a noble non-profession, but it is a profession, and it's pretty lonely at the top. So I've been in Fort Stockton my entire life, graduated, went to school there, became band director, and principal, assistant principal, middle school principal, and now assistant deputy superintendent. 28 years of fun. And so I want to thank you again, because it is only the top, and you chose to be here today. So those of you from Big Spring, Buena Vista, our neighbors down the road, I appreciate you being here, and then of course our local board as well. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Fort Stockton is out in West Texas. It's hot over there. It's really hot, and it's in the middle of nowhere. We have a few malls, Walmart, Dollar General, and so attracting teachers to West Texas, especially in Fort Stockton, is a little tough, right? Rattlesnakes and the second largest roadrunner in the world, but we're out there, right? And so the reason why we're trying to find that is because just like all of you in here, you want the best teachers for your schools and for your kids. Like this morning, the whole reason why you're here is for kids. So it's a noble profession that you're being here. And so every school district deserves the very best teachers. And so that's why we came up with this plan. The issue can be is sometimes teachers want to do what they love, right? They want to do the right thing. I want to be a PE teacher, but yet those teachers have been the best 3rd grade teacher in the last 20 years. And so do you reward that? Do you reward the human nature of the path of least resistance? Because we all know that to be better at something, it has to make you feel uncomfortable. To be better at getting better grades, to be better at working out, you have to work out to be better. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable eating right. So a lot of times, it's uncomfortable for teachers to keep going, even though we need them, you need them, our very best teachers. And so sometimes it's caused an issue for us. And so that's why we did our very best to figure out what we could do to keep our best teachers in the best spots for our kids who need them the most.
So looking at the patterns, right, you have to identify a problem, you have to admit that there is a problem. And as we study what was going on in Fort Stockton and what's going on in a lot of districts throughout the state, we noticed that it was always the testable subject areas that we were replacing. Always the Algebra 1 teacher, always the English teachers. And we said, why is that? Because our own people, the best of the best, the people who should care most about Fort Stockton, had worked their way out of those testable areas. And why? If you get paid the same, I want to teach theater or arts also. I want to teach art. They never get over those art teachers. They just keep on going. And we figured out with this pattern that we were going to have to do something to give people a reason to step into those difficult areas. And a $3,000 stipend wasn't enough of a reason.
So we started working on solutions, and it was a lot of conversations.
And those conversations took place after work. There's too many things that happen during the day. It's nonstop. Mr. Madrid and I spent, before he quit drinking, a couple of days.
I did. I had to. It was endless nights. I couldn't keep up the next day.
So sometimes we go to the bar afterwards and just talk shop. Usually it was in my office or his, hours and hours and talking about how are we going to solve this dilemma and what is it that's causing this. One of the first time that I encountered it, actually goes all the way back to South Texas where I'm from, And a friend who happens to be in the room, who happened to be a business manager at the time, who told me about a little town was going just through this. All of those people, those teachers, they become friends with their principals, with their administrators. And what happens then? Well, you know, I just love second grade. I don't want to be in fourth no more, because it's just that age level. We justify to ourselves the reasons why we want to teach theater arts. It's my passion. Well, if it was your passion, why is it that you went and got a math degree to begin with? And all of a sudden now you're changing to theater arts? It goes back to what we were talking about originally.
So as he mentioned, it was day, you know, we could not talk about this during the day, because just like many administrators, you're bombarded with all kinds of things. And so yes, I did stop drinking because I couldn't handle it, you know. The thing about it was, what we looked about was change. Everybody freaks out, change. Oh, here we go, we're gonna change something. So we started talking about, let's not use the word change, but how can we make it better? How can we improve things? Because we're all in the improving business, whether it's our own selves, whether it's schools, whether it's at home, whether it's with our kids. We're trying to be better every single day. So that was part of the dialogue that we had, was we gotta look at improving the things that we're at. And so the whole goal was to attract and retain the very best teachers we could possibly find and keep in Fort Stockton, just like everybody in this room wants to do. And so it was tough.
HB2, mid-sized small districts, plus 8,000 for teachers over 5 years, plus 4,000 for 3 and 4, locally determined for 0 through 2. What that means is that at a minimum, our zone teachers, a 0-year zone teacher, because they get to have the first level, will be at $85,000. I didn't make $85,000 until my second year of being a superintendent. So that is just amazing. It's one of the things that we talk about. Some of our younger teachers don't understand that, because they haven't put in the time. They don't know what it's like to work for $40,000 a year, coaching every single sport. Plus, man. So to understand what it is that's possible, and to see the direction, to know that when we implemented this, that summer we had the highest number of transfer requests in the district's history, because our teachers that had found a way to get away from those difficult areas had a reason to go back.
So what we looked at was practice, staffing, and pay strategy, as Dr. Zamora mentioned earlier. The whole idea was to reward the most impactful teachers in our district. We do it all the time. Think about it. You pay the high school head football coach quite a bit of money. Although, is he on the same level as a 7th grade 18 football coach? Probably not. And there's a pay difference in that. Well, we just took that mentality of a teacher who is teaching a tested subject for math, English, reading, what have you. And is that a little bit different from a teacher who is a PE, art teacher? So we just kind of took that and said, hey, let's switch this over to on the teaching side of what that looks like. And so that's where we took a proactive idea of staffing that in a little bit differently, kind of tailored like what we do for our head football coaches, band directors, what have you, which are hard to find, don't get me wrong, but so are our teachers. Our very best teachers are hard to find.
Now, sometimes people will hear me say that the first zone teachers were coaches. You know, as a former coach and a teacher myself, I understood that we got additional days, and those additional days came at a daily rate and an increase. So in our state, in essence, we've already been doing this forever. We have coaches that got 20 extra days, some of them that got 25 extra days. We prioritize sports sometimes over academics, and that's a shame, because academics should be right on top with those different sports. But honestly, to sell this, I'm gonna quote from a movie, one of my old favorite Al Pacino movies, Sense of a Woman. At the end when he says, I always knew what the right thing was to do. I always understood that, but I couldn't do it because it was too dang hard. And it is hard, because to try to sell it to my wonderful school board over here from the beginning and say, we're going to pay some of our teachers $20,000, $25,000 more than some of our others, and to say that our uncertified teachers would never get another pay raise. When I got to Fort Stockton, I think the salary was $46,000 for a 0-year teacher. That summer in June, we pushed it up to $47,000. If you look at the different pay scales for the uncertified teachers, that's where it stayed. we stopped giving them the same amount of pay because some of them had been in the district for 3, 4, 5 years and had still not finished certification. Why? Because there wasn't a reason to. They know that we needed them. And you know what? That's fine. I can live with that. And if they want to work for $40,000 for the rest of their life, instead of getting certified and we prorate them from that day, more power to them. They help us to fund the zone teachers.
So, if you haven't heard, there's 2 bills out there, Senate Bill 2253 and House Bill 2, which is basically going to get rid of DOI teachers and uncertified teachers, especially regarding math and reading and some foundational courses. There's also parts of that that say, hey, you're going to have to incentivize teachers who are getting the certification. Well, I want to say in Fort Stockton 4 years ago, that was the beginning. We were ahead of the game trying to say, hey, we know we need to incentivize teachers who are getting the certification and who are teaching those tested subjects. So I want to say we're ahead of the game. So those of you who are DOI districts, which I'm pretty sure there's quite a bit in here, you might want to keep a tab with your district to say, hey, let's look at House Bill 2 certification and SB 2253 because in essence, you're not going to be allowed, the way it is right now, to hire people in math and reading who are not fully certified, which is a little scary because we already struggle as it is to find those teachers. So that's super important. So I want to say we were ahead of the game, which is good for Fort Stockton. And I know that you're here today, so you'll be ahead of the game too.
You know, sometimes I wish that the state would just come out and say the things. You have to read between the lines. We test 20-star tests per year. Out of those, starting from 3rd grade all the way to high school, it's English, reading, and math. So what are the most important subjects? If we're only testing science in 5th grade, 8th grade, and biology, we're only testing U.S. history and 8th grade social studies, but every year, year after year, we're hitting English and math. Why don't they just say it? Why doesn't the state come out and say, this is where we want you to go? As someone who went to college for the sole purpose originally to get my mama from Mexico a bachelor's degree, because that's what she wanted. When I talk trash about PE and kinesiology people, I outwin. Why? Because after I got out of the military active duty for 8 years, and I decided to go to college to fulfill my mama's dream, I went through the entire manual and saw that was a degree that I could finish the fastest. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to go be a military contractor. 2.5 years, I finished it, A&M Kingsville, Tamu. Yeah. So I finished it, and when I was there, I remember specifically the university saying, don't go get math certified, don't go get English certified, don't go get science certified. Districts don't want coaches to teach those subject areas. Go get social studies, go get special ed, go get Spanish. And that's a shame. Because coaches are actually, in my opinion, some of the best teachers that are out there. And our university system and the system itself has pushed them away from the areas where we desperately need them. And I think that if more people caught on to what it is that we're doing, the universities would have to adapt themselves. They'd have to say, okay, you can teach PE, you can teach art, but if you want to make the big money, go into the areas where they're paying the big money, because they need people like us to be there. I only coached for 3-4 years. After that, I realized that that wasn't the pathway that I wanted to go down. You know, I wanted to be in the classroom. I wanted to help districts to get better, campuses to get better, and I think that there are a lot of people like that. My old boss sitting right there, AD and superintendent now. So he took a different pathway too, and I know the caliber of teacher that he was and the leader that he was back then. So it's something that we have to adapt to. You know, these things. Another thing that they won't put out there: those 20 tests. In itself, it is a test. Imagine you're a teacher and you're creating a test, and go to that bell curve. Right? On this end, you have the easiest of the easiest questions, the confidence builders. On this other end, you have the difficult, most challenging questions, so that you can identify who the best of the best is. And those 20 tests, you won't read this anywhere, read between the lines, they're set up in the same way. Last year, the most difficult test in the state, based off of passing percentage statewide, was 7th grade math, followed by 5th grade science, followed by 8th grade social studies. There's a pattern there, even between that. None of them are at the high school. The two easiest tests in the state traditionally have been U.S. history, and then after that, biology. I really believe now that biology has taken over as being the easiest exam. It's just that kids are not taking it when they're juniors. They're taking biology usually their freshman or sophomore year. So ask yourself why. Why are the two easiest exams in the state at the high school level? Why?
Oh no, it's okay.
So, I thought he was.
He heard my thoughts.
So, the reason that it's up there is that you have got to, at a minimum, pass 3 exams so that you can IGC out. 3. So the state has set it up to where 2 gimmies are up there. And then either that, are you a math person or a reading person? Can you take one English test and pass it? Maybe the math test? Let's just see if we can get you that 3rd one so that you can graduate. Now ask yourself why. Because the state knows that of the most difficult tests, the most challenging tests were at the high school, our state graduation rate would be in the pits. Does that make sense?
So, in Fort Stockton, homes are pretty expensive. You're looking anywhere between $170,000 to $250,000 for a home. But yet, we have about close to 40% of our community is at the poverty level. A lot of that has to do because we have a lot of oil out there, just like many of you here. And so people think, oh, oil, Fort Stockton's rich, but a lot of our people are not rich at all at any point. And so we struggle. That's why, as you see up there, we look at trying to retain and attract those teachers at the highest salary we possibly can. And so it's been tough. It's tough to explain to principals sometimes. It's tough to explain to teachers sometimes. And so we go over it and over it and over it. And there are some handouts out there as well that I know we're going to review here in a little bit. But I would tell you, in a simple way, you're just trying to retain and keep and hire the best people for your kids. And it's a little different way of thinking about it. And like I said, when you look at what's going through the legislative session this past year, we're kind of ahead of that game. And there's another part of that that's mentioned up here about how we can grow our own teachers. Well, in Fort Stockton, we've been doing that. We've been encouraging aides to say, hey, if you come on board with us, and we've had a few who come on board and went through certain online programs to become teachers, we will reward your years of service within our plan. And so, as like in those 2 bills, we're trying to grow our own as well, which is much more innovative than we've done ever before until there's more. I think it's 3 years, yeah.
3 who have already accomplished it. The fastest one, I think, was 16 months. Someone who thought to themselves, I've given up on my dream of being a teacher because I'm in human resources. I work 234 days. I'm making more money than what a 0-year teacher would make. When she saw, I can jump to the top from down here as an at-will, she got on it. 16 months, she finished her special ed degree, and she's on the cusp of being certified this summer. Extremely proud of her. She was the first, but not the only. And we know that there are a lot of other teachers out there. You want to throw that document up there? Yeah, so Mr. Madrid said, well, they don't understand it. And he was right. Sometimes our principals didn't understand it. Sometimes our own CFO would come to me and say, can you explain this to me? I said, sure. So we developed this graphic so that we could share with everybody a simplified version of what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And really, in blue at the top is the overall goal. We want our best here at the top. If you are the best art teacher in the world, congrats. Go get certified and be the best English teacher for us, because that's what we need. And if you choose to stay in the art department, that's great. That is a form of compensation in itself. So what he was talking about at the bottom, based on the role, the years of service. If you're a teacher's aide, the state dictates that you receive 2 years of credit on the teacher scale. There's nothing that says that locally you can't change that. And we did. So the lady who I was talking about, 15 years? I think 15 years in the district, she knew if I start at 0 years, I'm losing the money. But because the district has given me 15 years of credit, she knows that she's got a $90,000 paycheck for less days that's right around the corner. Now, we'll say this. One of the challenges that we had, where do you come up with the money? And we were already spending some of that money. Summer school, weekends, after-school tutorings. So what we did is we created a completely separate contract for zone teachers. They agreed to work an additional 15 days per year, so they're at a 202. But check this out. Again, locally, our school board approved that if you are a zone teacher, don't freak out when I tell you the number of days that we give our staff. They get 10 local days, and they get 5 state days. And that's extreme. Coming from South Texas where we got 3. Anyways, what we said is, whatever amount of days for that particular year that you do not use, at the end of instruction, we will approve. That doesn't exist for the deputy superintendent, that doesn't exist for the superintendent. It exists solely for our zone teachers. If they save all 15 of their days, then they're still a 187-day employee. So they maintain the same summer and all of that, or if they save 12 days, right, then they don't have to do summer school. Why? Because that means that they were there when we needed them most.
Yes, so it improves teacher attendance, and we save money on substitutes and having to move people around and take people to cover classes and things like that, so that we hope that those teachers who are zone teachers say, hey, man, I'm just going to save my days so I can get off this summer, no big deal, because I'm going to get paid for them and trade them in. And so it helped us to keep our teachers in the classroom, and it also helped them say, hey, I'm going to trade those days so I don't have to use them. I can use them at the end so I can have my summer off. And so it kind of helped us out both ways. Keep those teachers in the classroom, they get their pay, and so it worked out very well for us. Like I said, it's been a challenge, and as he mentioned, there's times that a principal will call and like, can you explain again? And so there we are, explaining again, going over and over it again. And we know that. We know even there's some board members sometimes like, really don't know a lot. We take the time to go over it with them. And our best answer, I always tell them, if they have an issue, don't answer it. Say, hey, call Dr. Zamora, call Mr. Madrid. You guys do not even put in that place to answer those tough questions. That's not your role sometimes, right? You want to help people. You can help people by getting them to the right person so they can answer those questions for you. Don't answer questions that you feel obligated to. I think sometimes that causes issues down the road. Let your superintendents and administration handle that.
So when you look at the top of the pyramid, you see 77, you see 90 at the top. Those numbers are obviously going to change now with HB2 that we're going to change anyways. We were waiting to see how this session ended up. And then you see 62 on the other side. So I'm sure you're wondering, why is that there? We believe that elementary teachers, generalists, lay the foundation. And so kinder through second grade teachers are eligible to become zone teachers, but they don't get to skip the first zone. They have to start at the bottom. And the reason, we didn't want for kinder through second grade to become the new hideout. There has to be a difference, and $3,000 between second grade and third grade was not enough. Annualize, divide that by 12, take taxes, it ain't no big deal. $10,000 on the other hand, that means something. And that gives people a reason to go where we need them the most. And if they want to be a first grade teacher because that's the age that they love, they're telling the truth.
And so there's another aspect of this that we actually started doing this year, and you add the teacher incentive allotment on top of this, that goes huge for a teacher. We'll have teachers making more than a principal would in some situations because of that.
They already are.
And they already are at this point, believe it or not. We do have some teachers who are making more than some of our administrators. Now, does that make administrators a little bit upset? Are you in the job for convenience or what's best for the kids? We have to ask ourselves that question sometimes, right? I look back and wish if I was a teacher making $100,000, it'd be nice, right? But I wasn't there, you know? My first year I think the highest I made my first year as a principal, I made 85, you know? Now there's teachers making more than that. And when you add teacher incentive allotment, even better. And for those who don't know, that teacher incentive allotment, I think is for 5 years, carried down the road, which is kind of nice, you know. So we're also a teacher incentive allotment district, which helps us out as well.
At the end of last year, something happened. We lost an Algebra 1 teacher. I think there were 7 weeks left in the year. And since I got to Fort Stockton, I had heard legends about a lady who was the best math algebra teacher in the history of Fort Stockton, and she was still working for us. You know what she was doing? She was a counselor at the high school. And I went personally and sat down with her and I said, look, I hear you were the greatest. Could you finish a year for us? And in that conversation, I said, why did you decide to leave the classroom? And she said, career progression, money. I want to earn a little bit more. I ran the numbers for her right there and I said, look, finish these last 7 weeks and see if you still have it in you, because this is how much more money you would make as an Algebra 1 teacher. And her response was, sir, are you saying that an Algebra 1 teacher is more important to the district than a counselor? I said, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because you are the ones that determine how we're assessed. It isn't our fault that 98% of the accountability system is based off of STAR tests. It's the world that we live in. And guess what? She's still teaching algebra now. She finished her DIAG degree, interviewed, and turned the job down to be a DIAG for us because of the money she was going to lose. She's a senior teacher, somewhere in the 20-year mark, so she's already at that 90 with this bump in pay. She's going to be at 100. When TIA kicks in for her, she'll probably be one of the teachers that are earning that 120 that usually used to just belong to administrators. But at the end of the day, how many times have you heard it? You've heard over and over that the most critical piece, the most important thing that you can do is to have an excellent teacher in that classroom. We're giving them a reason to stay there.
So he's right. You know, a lot of the, it's kind of crazy. You have to ask yourself, where do you want to be and what do you want to do? And I take that same thing for me. I was a band director, enjoying life, no problem. And there was a superintendent at the time, Mr. Mayfield, who said, can you help cover the school? Because the principal was out. And I thought, well, I guess I can, right? So I did it, and he kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me. He's like, I really need you as administrator. I really need you as administrator. And I finally gave in, and I've never looked back. So I thank him for that. And so we all have those situations like that math teacher where we're able to do more for the right reason as opposed to how convenient it is for me. And that's tough. That's a tough sell. That's a really tough sell for a lot of people because I'm in it for kids, but are you really in it for kids? Are you sharing your blessed skills from the Lord to give to the kids that you need to your school? That's a tough one. Those are tough conversations that Dr. Moore's had to have, that I've had to have with people. And you hope in the end that everything will be much better for you, for your school, for your kids. And it's a tough one. And that's probably where you guys come in the mix. I'm saying, hey, is it really best for kids? Because you guys are not on the school board for convenience. I know that we all know that, right? So thank you for doing that for us. And so it is a tough sell. But now looking at it, 3-4 years down the road, it's a lot nicer. We've kind of ironed out a lot of things. It wasn't perfect at first. We came up with every crazy scenario we could come up with, and then we'd miss one or two, and then we'd address it later on, you know. So it's been a challenge, but I believe in our heart that we are having the very best for who we have in Fort Stockton, out in the middle of nowhere, to help our kids.
People say we can only do this because we're in West Texas and we're a property wealthy school district. But the truth is that there's a pie out there for every school district. That pie may be different in size, but how you ration the pieces is up to you. So maybe your numbers are higher than ours, or maybe they're a little bit lower, but at the end of the day, it can be done because it's the same pie that we're using as everybody else. It's just our teachers in these testable subject areas, and by the way, special ed too, because we have a very difficult time attracting special ed teachers, they get a bigger piece of that pie.
So again, when doing this, we tried to set a new standard of innovation and equity for our most talented teachers, or we needed the most. It's been a great challenge, but I think we've done a great job of doing that for our community and our kids. It involves the compensation support of our students that we've been trying to do ever since Dr. Moore got there. Not that we weren't doing it before, but it's just on a different level. So we have the question. I do like your jersey, Bob. Stand up. Look at this guy's jersey. Look at the back of that. Team of 8. I don't know where you're from, but I like that.
What have you had any issues with grievances on when you rolled this out?
No, believe it or not, we have not. Okay, there's a part of this where you have to do a lot of explaining and why. And when you say, is that really best for kids, or are you just being selfish? That's a tough one, right? Are you really trying to make the system better? Or are you just in it for yourself? None of us in this room are in it for ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, right? Because I know we could all be doing a whole lot more than sitting in this room today, making probably a whole lot more money with less headaches, right? So, no, we have not had a single one. It's crazy, right? A lot of it has to do with sitting down with principals, going over it over again, you know. So if it starts at the top and it whittles its way down, and everybody's saying the same things, everybody hears the same things, it's like this. My kids don't like everything that I tell them to do, just like your own kids, right? But what's best for them, right? We love our kids, but some days we don't like them, and that's okay, right? And they don't like me, but we love you. This is what's best for the whole organization. Who is your organization, by the way? Your kids. Think about it. There's more of them than anybody here in the district, right? Yes, sir.
Do you still have progression by years of service?
Let me answer that.
Right, yeah.
So I know that y'all are probably thinking the reason we call them zone teachers is because they're like Michael Jordan, right, in the zone. But that isn't the truth. If you look at that pay system in the back, it's because it's made up of 5 different zones, where they're essentially going to get paid the same until they enter zone 2 or zone 3. So that's the reason. But going back to that grievance question, there's nothing wrong with a grievance. Let them file it. It's only wrong when what you did was wrong. And I think identifying skill sets and credentials and distinguishing between them is perfectly legit. We do it with coaches, we do it with administrators, we do it with counselors all the time. So I don't believe that we are treating people unfairly. Matter of fact, we're challenging our teachers to go take the exams to go into the areas that we need most.
Go back to your question. That was one of the questions we talked about. So what our thought was, hey, if you're in zone 1, let's just say, hypothetically, starting pay is at $40,000. And by the time you get to the 5-year mark, it's maybe 50. Well, we said, hey, we're going to start paying you 50 for the first 1 through 5 years. So we're actually paying you ahead of time. And by the time you get to the 5th year, the next zone, then it's a different level. So we were kind of paying people for years that they really haven't done. But because they were in a high need, high area zone teacher, that's where we kind of made the difference of. So yes, there was tiers, but we're basically paying you ahead of time by the time you got to that year level.
One of the secrets is that we are slowly closing that Venus flytrap on them. We want them to come to us. We want them to get this type of money because once they're there and they start getting $85,000 from the beginning, how do they leave the district to go to a place that's going to pay them $45,000? And if they are of that caliber, which is one of the challenges that we've gone through, we had to personally develop some, I'd say, algorithms and spreadsheets to identify who truly was worthy of being a zone teacher. And that additional contract makes it very clear that you are not entitled to it, that this is a privilege, that it can be lost. I think that TIA, as I said, it's a noble effort and cool, but 1 year that you rock it, and now for the next 5 you're good, I don't know about that. I think that you've got to prove yourself over and over every day.
Let's get his question first, and we'll come back to you.
Quick question. I noticed on your certified salary schedule, regular schedule, the amount you're paying above base is not consistent through the steps. How did you determine that?
Okay, so I believe that the state salary scale, the one that starts at 34 and ends somewhere around 54, in itself is flawed. And it's something that we've always done it that way, so why not? And a lot of districts, what they've done is they say, okay, we're going to pay $5,000 above state minimum. $34,000 plus 5 is $39,000. for the most difficult point in your career, because you just started teaching. You're a 0-year teacher, you're having to do more work than the senior ones. And I think that pattern was identified and addressed long ago, where some of the younger teachers have been paid at a higher level. I know when I was in a district in South Texas, they had issue in the teachers, the senior teachers. This isn't fair. Why are you giving the young teachers a $6,000 pay raise and we're only getting $2,000? Like, there's disparity there, and we're comparing to what other districts are doing, and other districts are stealing all of our young teachers because they're outpaying us by $6,000, $7,000. So I do think that it's something that should be addressed, and that there should be something that's done. HB2, without changing the minimum salary scale, has made it to where we have to change the minimum salary scale. By the way, we adopted state minimum salary scale that same year in 2022 as our base pay. Everything above is supplemental and or stipend pay.
Well, I just noticed year to year, between each year, it might be a $500 increase, it might be a $250 increase, maybe. So it wouldn't, I'm not being like, I'm just curious how
Our CFO worked with us, and it's just okay. Let's sprinkle it so that there's some sort of.
I think the whole idea was to get them, and like you mentioned, if we be in a supply track, and just get them and say, hey, now I'm part of it. I might have a girlfriend or boyfriend now, and I'm going to stick around, you know. So the whole idea is to get them here and do as much as we can to keep them there. So yeah, you're right. After a few 10, 20 years, it's not as much, but when you think about it, as he mentioned earlier, if I'm a first-year teacher in a normal school district making $40,000, and then next year 42, next year 44, next year 46. On the zone pay, if you're on zone pay, hey, you're at that level, and it doesn't change, and it's actually at the higher end of where you would be for the first 5 years. Okay, this right here.
What school year? How many years ago did you start this zone program? And what
2022.
What was the additional cost for that school year when you started this?
It's 22. That was a year.
We approved it in March, I believe.
I think it was March 22.
We like to get our pay systems out there so that when we recruit, we're showing our best. And that year, because it was something that was very different, we approved it pretty early in the year and put it out there. As far as what it cost, we were already paying for summer schools. We were already paying for those Saturday schools. Those were days, sometimes it was the art teacher who was doing that summer school. And we said, look, we want our best teachers to conduct those and be rewarded for it. I can tell you that at the end of that year, we still surplus, so it isn't something that threw us into a deficit.
The other thing is that picking the zone teachers is not a Dr. Zamora, Mr. McGritt thing at all. It is done by the campus leadership teams to say, hey, this is our needs, these are our best teachers, this is who our zone people are. Now, we go through the list, and sometimes we'll pull up map data and star data and say, are you sure you want to do this? Because this may, catch up to you later on. And so we just kind of help guide them along the way. But ultimately, it is based upon their campus leadership teams, which is basically the principal, assistant principal, instructional people that help out with that. Yes, go ahead.
When we do that massive spreadsheet that we put together, when we calculate progress with MAC, and we look at what the STAR scores were, and we look at their attendance, all those things, we take it down to a number, very much like Moneyball. And we don't want for our teachers to compete against one another thinking, oh, I have to have the best kids, or I didn't do as good because I have the kids that were a little lower. Well, that's why progress is in there, to see were you able to take them to the top. And what we put in place is we told the campus leadership teams and that campus, we have 6 campuses, we have 2 virtual schools. We run 2,200 kids in Fort Stockton, about another 18,000 virtually. We told the campuses and those leadership teams that if they succeeded, if they had a good year on the accountability system, that it was in their hands to determine who was worthy of being a zone teacher. If they did not, then our spreadsheet comes into play, and we're going to have to say, this isn't someone who lived up to the expectations.
Did you continue your summer programs? You just swap that dollar amount in the zone? I want to be sure I understand.
Yes, that's exactly what we did. We do 4 weeks, half day, and before we were paying teachers to go and do it, and now a lot of our zone teachers are there, but sometimes, as we said, they will take those days off, so we still got to fill it in, but at the end of the day, we think that it's working. While most high schools in the state, now that they put the info out, they came down in U.S. history a bit, they came down in biology a bit, the English just came down a bit. For the last 3 years in a row, we have been setting records in each of those ELCs. For the first time in the district's history, we beat the state. When we hit 98% U.S. history last year, the district, we duplicated it, so that we pushed more masters and meets all the way through and through. Now I'm going to say this number, and you're going to say, oh, that ain't that good. We had 77% of our English 2 kids pass. If you look at that, that's beating the state by a significant amount, because the Englishes are the most difficult tests at the ELC level.
I want to go back to something when he mentioned about grievances. We did have some teachers who say that, and I tried not to laugh when they told me this, but they said, my kids are projected to be masters. And I said, projected? What does that mean? Like, I'm projected to make 20 bucks in the stock market today with Tesla, but I don't know if that's going to work out, right? So we did have teachers who said that they were projected to do this and projected to do that, and they should be zone teachers and they should be that. And on the other side, we had teachers who said, hey, my kids were approaches, but yet they had the largest amount of gain when it came to where those kids started at to where they were at. Well, guess what? Those teachers, even though they had a lot of kids who were approaches, maybe some at meets, they did the very best amount of growth compared to the other teachers. Like, well, my kids are on masters. Well, yeah, your kids were masters before you got them. Or worse, I had a lot of kids who were masters, and now a lot of them are down to meets and approaches. Is that really a zone teacher? Probably not. There's something we have to look at. But yet teachers who, had, a huge growth from where they started made a huge impact for zone teachers. And that goes back to a spreadsheet that we sat and argued with many times about who is a zone teacher and who is not. And even it was surprising to some principals, like, wow, I didn't look at that. Well, where were your kids at? And where are they at now compared to each teacher? And so there was teachers like they were way off their radar, but once we put numbers to it, they were actually the best teachers we had. Because of the amount of growth they had to bring. Yes, sir.
One question. When you started this program in 22, in the zone program, the additional money it cost, did it come out of your reserve fund?
No, sir. No, we surplus that year. So we started, we approved it, and then 22, 23, at the end of the year, we didn't dig into fund balance to do it. We still surplus. So, and as I said, yes, we're blessed, and the numbers may be different for every district. I want to touch on something else that I think is interesting about this. And I've told Mr. Madrid before that I may never have become an administrator if I had something like this in the districts where I work at, because I really love teaching. It's the most fun and exciting thing that I've done in my time in education is to be in the classroom teaching our kids. And I went down this pathway because I was making $43,000. And I needed to figure something out. And who are our zone teachers? For the most part, there are go-getters. There are those teachers that go above and beyond all the time. So we have them. We advertise for a curriculum director. We advertise for AP. And they're the same ones that are applying. And we've had conversations over and over with these teachers because they cannot believe that they take a $20,000 pay cut to go be a curriculum director. They can't believe that if they go be an AP and have to work more days, that they're still going to make less money. So something has happened there. It's changed the dynamics, and we're keeping the people that we need in the classroom and growing some of our administrators among the younger teachers who can say, okay, I have a career that's long enough ahead of me that I can invest in myself and become a curriculum director, and maybe 3-4 years later I can be an AP, 3-4 years later I can be a principal. There's enough time there to where I can win on the administrator side. But if you're 30 years in, or 35 years in, you don't have enough time to make it through the system. And it's starting to spread because they just can't believe. Everybody is so used to knowing that the administrators get paid more money. Right? That's where you make the money. It's being a principal. Not here, not with us. Our teachers matter, and that's why we put this in place.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Has it put pressure on your administrator pay, IAC pay, some of those?
We always tell them, you have 0 experience as a curriculum director. You have 25 years of rocking it as a teacher. So it's justified that we're paying you so much more for your experience and your skill set where you come over here, you're starting from scratch all over again. So it is absolutely true that there are teachers in our district that are making more money than some of our principals, for sure.
It really hasn't cost too much because I think principals want good star scores per se, you know? It's a trade-off, right? It makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to go to school improvement. I don't have to do these things. So it's made their jobs a little bit easier. As you mentioned earlier, we did have an individual who went to the curriculum side, became a campus curriculum director, instructional coach. After a year, she's like, I'm not doing this. I'm making way more money being a teacher, not having to deal with all the things that I have to deal with. I'm just going to make more money as a teacher with less days. So I thought, hey, there you go. That's the whole intent of the
We
program.
got someone in the back.
Yes, sir.
My question is, does it ever become too much for the teacher? And where I'm coming from on that, so we've got a program similar to that mission. So we've got teachers that they can get in this program, and if they do well enough to meet the standards, they get extra money on top of their salary, things of that nature. Now, on top of STAR and on top of everything else, have y'all ever run into the problem where your teachers are burned out and then they take themselves out of that program? Because we've had that issue a few times where the money's just not worth it. Y'all ever have that problem?
I can think of one example where a teacher who was proven and doing well ran away from the specific subject that she was teaching to go to a non-testable subject area and become a coach. The extra days for coaching and the stipends made it to where she didn't lose quite as much as she would have if she had just shifted away from there. But for the most part, these people love what they do, and they also love to be compensated for it.
Yes, sir. Everybody loves to be paid off.
Y'all had some good questions. Thank you for that. It's good. You were good. I told the board they can ask questions, so they can throw tomatoes and they just can't ask questions.
On the document, there's a QR code, and that QR code is to an article that was written in the Odessa American. After we finished our first year, I had a reporter call me and I said, "You're in luck. You caught me at the right time," because we didn't tell nobody the first year we did it. We wanted to steal everybody's teachers, big springs, you know.
Jay's in the house.
Everybody's teachers, right? And so we kept it a secret. We kept it a secret, and then when we finally did the interview in July of 2023, I said, it's too late. I already got another year ahead of them. So even if they start picking it up and read this article, which basically tells you everything that we just went through, you're going to have to wait a whole other year before they do it, which takes me back to what I said earlier with that Al Pacino club. It's too hard. It's too hard. There are not enough school board members and administrators who are willing to take the hits in the face, the kicks in the nose, that come with trying to implement something like this that seems to be unfair, but in reality, it's about the fairest thing you could do.
If we don't have any more questions, like I said, you know where we're at, Fort Stockton, holler at us. I am going to go to the next slide that has that famous number, QR code, that you share with the other board members who aren't here. Know how that goes, right? Ready? I think I got it right. The guy emailed it to me. He's like, "Can you add this to your slide?" Let's see if I got it. Yay, there it is. CEC 3751. Okay. He said, "Can you add that?" I said, "I think I know how." Pretty good at that.
We want to thank y'all for attending our session. We hope that you look into it and maybe look at adapting it in whatever way works for you. Y'all have a blessed one. Y'all see me at the bar. Come enjoy.
Take care. Be safe.